Thursday. RawMikeRichards.com. Broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto. 234 King Street East out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Coming up today, loss for Team Canada. The women, that is Canadians' national program, defeated by a really good U.S. team. Pretty exciting game, goes to a shootout. And lots of tears and lots of mascara running. Just like when the Sabres lose. Robin, it's going to be okay. No, I'm a terrible goalie. I used to be good. I'm terrible now, and I'm fat. Well, there is that.
It's true.
Maybe Evander Kane goes, yeah, and I come to think about it, you are a little fat, and you haven't played that great. By the way, Evander, house for sale.
Exactly. He seems like the guy that's renting anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, what am I saying? House for sale.
I know he has the money to buy 17 houses, but dude knows when he's not welcome, and so far he hasn't been welcome on 2 different NHL franchises, 3 different cities. So say hello to franchise number 3. Just saying.
What about Erik Karlsson? Is Karlsson selling his house?
That's interesting.
Because I think...
You're the price tag on that, too?
Oh, that's a big one.
You have to take Bobby Ryan if you're taking Erik Karlsson.
And
it's like, I'm good. No, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I saw that kind of talk. It's like, well, if you take the Sedins, you got to take both. What? It's not Pee Wee hockey. Well, that is his brother. Okay.
It's a great message if you're Bobby Ryan. Though,
and now sorry, I'm trying to. This thing is doing.
Oh, that's okay. You need that for later.
Just like the old days, eh?
Yeah.
You just saw there a little slight.
It's funny though, eh? When you're working with the communications company, you just mentioned that starts with the letter B.
You mean Bell?
Yes. You'd think their computers would be like 2,000 and above. But it's not.
And then the engineer guys would come in. They go, I don't know how to fix this.
No.
But what's your job? It's your job. It's like, by the way, if you own a donut store and I go through your drive-thru to order some donuts, you might want to not have me go, hello, welcome to dinner. Yeah, can I get a couple of honey crullers, the French-style crullers, the honey dipped? I'm sorry, we don't have any. The sprinkles, the Hawaiian sprinkles? I'm sorry, we don't have any donuts. You're a donut store. That should never happen. Never. Never. Or at least say closed because we're not good at what we do.
True.
We stop picking donuts from the donut tree, and we have no donuts left. Have you ever had that?
Lousy donut pickers.
Have you ever had that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Got a good story about our friend Vicky, who, as a teenage girl, used to work at a Pizza Hut. They ran out of pizza one day.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
What else was there to order at Pizza Hut at the time?
Yeah, Pizza Hut. If you need more crust, just do what you normally do. Just go out and find some dirt and chewing gum and put it together. I never got the Pizza Hut. I look, when your name is Pizza Hut, you better be pretty good at making pizza.
Oh, yeah.
It's not pizza and things.
No.
It's the Pizza Hut.
That's right.
By the way, which is... it's not there anymore, but in Scarborough, an area of Toronto, also known as Scarberia, and for some, Scarlum. That was a new one to me.
Scarlum. Okay, I didn't hear that one.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. That's a Paul Moyer. That's a Paul Moyer. So apparently they ran out of pizza there too. Someone came in and called it China Hut.
China Hut.
I go, you're not even trying. You're not even trying. I mean, you're not even trying. And it's not in business anymore. I thought I got to go there once because they tried to put the word China over pizza, and then...
You could still see the outline of the Z's?
Oh, no, we're keeping a hut. All right.
Well, you know what? To their credit, you save the money on the sign by keeping the hut, and on the China and pizza part, you can easily transfer the I in pizza.
Well, they tried. So there was a weird spacing. I go, but because of the roof,
it's pizza like, has an A, so does China.
It's like Ponderosa.
Oh, yes, I remember Ponderosa.
You know what the roofs look like.
Sure, yeah.
It's like McDonald's.
Bingo.
Oh no, this is McLary's. No, it's not. The golden arch is the M doesn't stand for McLary. There's a place in Sudbury, Ontario that has. They say they had the original golden arches and they refused to change it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Sudbury, Ontario.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
And here's what's so great about this: they had great food, great hamburgers, and then fresh for dessert, fresh homemade pies.
Ooh,
like
delicious.
if you want like a cherry or a blueberry pie,
Like a real pie. That We'd come over to my house or I'd go to your house
Yes.
and it'd be like out of the oven.
Out of the oven.
Oof, delicious. Love pie.
Nice. So let's talk more when Vicky was a teenager.
Okay.
Okay. And now back to the sports. Back to the sports.
Yes.
Heartbreak for the Canadians. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Mingus.
Oh, Mingus.
It goes to a shootout, and of course, for everyone here in North America, the game started at like 11:15. So if you stayed up for that one, the thing is, you just knew it was going to be tight. And there was something that told, and I guess maybe this is just an old rule of sport. If in the round robin you beat that team that is your arch rival, it is really tough to beat them twice. It goes to a shootout, and there was some pretty good moves, I would say, from both teams. Look, that American team has had to 20 years now since they've won a gold, so I guess they were probably due. But these are the two countries, and really the two countries only, that play the sport at that level. So the gold medal game, it's not whether you're going to win a medal. It's just between those two who's getting the gold. It's always very tight between these two teams. The Americans, by the way, were full marks for winning that game last night, Dave.
Yeah, they really were. And you know what? They look like the stronger team, the bigger team. Canada ran into some penalty trouble. Canada actually had the lead in the third period with about 7 and change left, 2-1. So it was almost like they ran out of steam. They just didn't have enough to get over the top. And then in the overtime, if you watch the overtime, which was really exciting, they kind of dominated play. And I thought the United States were actually going to win the game in overtime. It didn't happen. And I'm just saying this right now, and I know we've talked about it. Whoever won this game, the thing I hate about this the most is it was a shootout that determined a gold medal. I understand.
It's still brutal. That's brutal.
I understand round robin or during the regular season in hockey or whatever it is, shootout, call it a night, that's it. But for a gold medal, or could you imagine, Mike, the Penguins in last year's Stanley Cup deciding who wins the Stanley Cup on a shootout?
Brutal. It's just
It is. I'm sorry. If this goes 10 periods and the States win in the 10th period, good for them. It doesn't matter who's playing. Don't hand out a gold medal after a skills competition. It's disappointing.
And culturally, it's just not as innocent in North America to do it. You don't win the NBA championship because when you go to the free throw competition,
bingo.
That's what it feels like. Now, in the world of footy, in the world of soccer, culturally, it is their way to determine even the biggest of games on penalty kicks. You've seen World Cups.
Never understood it. Yeah,
go to penalty
exactly.
kicks. But they get it because they're used to it. But here in North America, you play till you lose. And so I think adopting, in hockey, which Canada is the leader in that sport. Culturally, of course, it's played around the world, but is it really? I mean, I think at some point, play it within the culture of the sport, and the culture of the sport says you play till you lose. So I don't like that rule. I get it when there's ice time issues, where there's scheduling issues, which is why a lot of times they have thought that the change to a shootout in NHL games makes sense, and maybe in the regular season we can live with that. But you're not deciding when a team has gone to overtime, and it's just got to be played until it's end, because the culture of the sport says that, and I think that culture it's misplaced when you have a
completely.
I do.
And the other thing too is, and like I said, this has nothing to do with the result of the game, but if you're going to hold a gold medal game of hockey standards or something that is one of the big golden eggs of a winter games or a summer games or whatever competition it is, why do you have the gold medal at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, Chinatown? 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like you think it would be in prime time, right? I mean, if you're thinking Olympics, you're thinking gold medal game, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, really? I mean, this isn't a football game or a soccer game or anything like that, or a matinee baseball. It's a hockey game. You have it at 7 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in the evening. If it's at 8 o'clock in the evening, that transfers to North American Eastern Time at about that 7:10 game that we've been watching a lot through these last 2 weeks of hockey. That's when the gold medal game should be playing. We should be sitting here talking about the gold medal result only 45 minutes after it's concluded here at 10:15 on the central on the east coast here of Canada. So I don't get that, and I think they made a big mistake there. If they're looking for viewership and eyes, which the Olympics are all about making money, let's not kid ourselves here. Why don't you put these big tournament games, these gold medal games in prime time in the destination city, so the rest of the world could actually see it at a better time, like this morning, as opposed to 11 something at night.
Here's what I thought was very different and very weird. I mean, this is just coming from a perspective. I get it. They're a guy. When I'm used to seeing as much sports as I have or coaching it, it was a little weird. So Maddie Rooney was the 20-year-old rookie that they had playing net for the U.S. And she makes a huge saves from
played really well, and she's going to be at the next 2 Olympics, by the way.
29 saves,
very young,
very young. But she did something I'm not used to. So here's what we're going to do, Russell. You're going as Dave is going to do, he's like the play-by-play guy.
Okay,
coming in and shooting on young Maddie. Here's what she did every time she made a save when the camera would zoom in her. So you start, he's going to say makes a save, and then it's like the camera zooms in on me, and I'll do what she did.
Okay, here we go. Richards 1-on-1 with the goaltender. Deke side shot, stopped by Maddie.
What? I'm serious. I'm going. Way to go, Maddie!
Was she not expecting it?
Wouldn't that be just really annoying in the NHL?
Really annoying.
So now make me Tuukka Rask.
Okay, here comes Matthews 1-on-1 with Rask. This could do it for the Maple Leafs. He shoots. Oh, it's big stop, Tuukka Rask, and the Bruins are back in it.
It's just. I just thought it was just really strange. I've never seen that at the highest level of sport. Can you imagine the Leafs stop and he's like, he's fucking smiling out there.
She took the Patrick Waugh eye wink to Thomas Sandstrom that much higher.
Can you imagine a wink after? Ooh, boy.
Well, you remember the Patrick Waugh Montreal Canadiens, Los Angeles Kings Stanley Cup, stops Thomas Sandstrom, and you see that close-up shot, and he gives the old ding. It's like, it's Patrick Waugh. It's the world's greatest goaltender. He can do whatever he wants. Love Patrick Waugh.
The eye wink.
The eye wink.
That's why when he flared up when it was at the Ramparts, who was the first junior team that he coached with?
Yeah. Owner, coach, general manager, did everything with the Ramparts. I got nothing but good things. I love him.
The temper would flare, which I miss that. I miss coaches losing.
Fan of that. Yeah.
Coaches now are too, they have a lot of lessons in psychology, sports psychology. Yep. I mean, John Cooper is a former lawyer or whatever, and he's very
way too calm.
Like he's just he is the opposite of almost any coach that I've ever known. Even his voice, like when he starts talking about what the players may or may not do. Usually coaches have that raspy sort of voice, and
That's right.
Especially basketball coaches. Tom Izzo, how do you think they played in overtime? Well, I thought the kids went out there and played well, because you're screaming all the time. The NHL coaches, Guy Boucher. Well, actually, Guy Boucher would be an excellent James Bond villain.
Yeah, he would. He has that great look too. Good looking guy too. I love Guy Boucher.
So he's got things like, well, I'm going to tell you. I was like, yeah, Mr. Bond.
Mr. Bond, your time has come up.
Come on, Mr. Bond. You enjoy killing as much as I do. Like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
And you know what? He doesn't deserve to be on that in that garbage pit of the Ottawa Senators. So I mean, good luck to him, because I don't know how long he hangs on, considering what they're doing to that franchise, that organization. But I hope he gets another opportunity after this Ottawa Senators debacle.
So let's talk about opportunities now. We've got in the in this world tonight. Oh baby, it's the Islanders in town.
Yes,
against the Maple Leafs, and for again, it's one of those teams. It's going to be a poor draw, but the only reason people are probably going to be showing up is the plethora of questions about whether John Tavares could possibly be a Toronto Maple Leaf. So, for the, I don't know, Dave, I've asked you, maybe this is 107.
Yes.
Is this something, and it's not about want at this point. It's not about want. It's about logistics and salary cap. It's about monetarily, is there a fit that it is even conceivable that JT could be a Toronto Maple Leaf?
I think there is. I really think there is. And I think not only would it be smart for Toronto, don't get me wrong, there's probably about 10 NHL teams that are in the same boat saying he'd be a good fit here too as well. I'm just saying it makes sense for Toronto, considering, okay, home base, that's one part of it. Number two, when you look at this roster, the Toronto Maple Leafs roster, a lot of younger players. And then you have a couple of the seasoned vets that are, the Patrick Marleaus and guys like that, Ron Hainsey's that are knocking on the door of retirement within the next couple of years, if not sooner. John Tavares gives them that middle ground between the two and gives the roster a true captain, a true leader. I think not only when they make this presentation in the offseason, which I think it will come down to the offseason, because I don't think the Islanders are going to deal them right now. You present money, you present the captaincy of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you present that this team is marketed after him. I understand the Austin Matthews thing, but I really don't think the Leafs should be putting a C on a 20-year-old guy from Arizona to be the captain of this franchise. American, Czech, Swede, doesn't matter to me who the captain is, but when the comparison is a John Tavares, there's no comparison. John Tavares might be a top 3, top 4 captain in the entire NHL. To have him as the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, you sell him on legacy, and you sell him on this is what could be the rest of your life. Look at what Doug Gilmour's doing. Anywhere Doug Gilmour goes, he's a hero. He's the former Leaf captain.
To these guys especially.
Big time. Big time. It's like
Jonathan Tavares.
Yep.
And Doug and him, I know for a fact, talked before he got the C. Because it's who you're looking to. You're going to look to a guy like Doug Gilmour.
That's exactly it. And it's like Doug Gilmour right now is so gold in this city, if not country, that everywhere he goes, it's Dougie this, Dougie that. It could be in 20 years when Tavares is already well retired, Johnny this, Johnny that. Just think about it. When you're looking at legacy, and when you're looking at what the rest of your life looks like after the age of 35, captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, maybe the guy that hoists the Stanley Cup as the captain of the Maple Leafs, and considering this city hasn't won a Stanley Cup in 50 years, man, that would be what Brian Burke was trying to do when he says it's like, managing the Vatican. It's the Vatican of the NHL, and that quote that was made so famous. I just look at that and go, if they play it properly and present properly, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, you just got Russell going. Well, we'll go to the Russ cam. You can hear the music with the excitement that you were bringing forth about an unbelievable historic moment that could possibly happen. Because
he hasn't been feeling well, so I'm glad I could make him smile a little bit.
So Russell, was that like a dream? Was that a fantasy for you? What he just said?
If they could get Tavares to come, it'd be great. I think it could work. Granted that I don't really see Bozak, JVR, or Komarov coming back. So all of that money coming off the cap could go towards Tavares.
Eventually, Joffrey Lupul's money leaves. Eventually, Nathan Horton's money leaves.
I think Horton is already off.
No, he's still on.
Okay, then Horton's done after this year, then I believe. Lupul then I think is done next year. But yeah, so that money comes off the books. I think that can be definitely put towards Tavares. Captaincy, I have no idea what they'd be thinking. I kind of lean more towards Matthews, but I can see obviously Tavares fitting in as the captain as well if he was brought in here. And I mean, I'd love it. You have your 1-2 centers as in whatever order you want. Austin Matthews, John Tavares.
Best two centers in the NHL, 1-2 punch.
I'm not going to complain about that.
Yeah, I can see that from where I'm sitting. It's not appropriate. So
I look at all the captains in the NHL, and I'm just scanning the list really quick. The only two captains I'd put ahead of John Tavares as far as captain and what he's done is Sidney Crosby and Jonathan Toews. I know a lot of people sit there and say Connor McDavid. I said, no. I'd rather have a John Tavares as a captain than a Connor McDavid. I'm just scanning this really. Like, I'm thinking of all the captains and looking at the rosters. You know, Ryan Getzlaf's a nice story in Anaheim, but I'd rather have a John Tavares.
Look, there's always in this sport, and maybe more than any other sport, because, you know, in football you have more than one captain. You've got like 4 of them. Generally, you're going to lean, of course, to your quarterback. That tends to be the way it goes. I look in basketball, you can usually figure out. But the captain in hockey, with that C, it sort of separates itself to me than any other sport. And that C has a weight to it, but it also depends on the city that you're talking about. So if you've got the C in Toronto, that brings its own kind of world to it. I'd also say the same thing really exists in Montreal, where there also is the complication of whether it's a francophone or not.
Yep.
It's the only place that really you're going to have that kind of conversation. Not that people go, yeah, but what about, you know, here in Edmonton? And yeah, I get all that because of the importance of the C in hockey. But when you're in an area like Toronto that hasn't won since 1967, and the captains and the line of those captains, and of course they did that great big thing where they all came out and all the captains, and you look at the names that have been, the C comes with a weight, which is why sometimes that weight is too big for the guys you have on the roster. So when Dion Phaneuf gets the C, the city goes bananas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the way. I don't know if there's another city where they go, oh, really, he's the captain? That's strange. That's not the feeling in Toronto, where it is, as you said, like the VAT. You give the wrong guy the big hat, the big pointy hat.
Bingo.
There is a problem, and that for Dion Phaneuf, it almost was a curse.
It was.
And I don't know if he ever really recovered from it. I don't know if he ever did. You know, because then he just became another player that gets shifted around. He goes to Ottawa, really isn't that prominent, and then now is shipped off to
Los Angeles.
To Los Angeles. So I don't know, but that is a conversation, certainly. You know, going to, and we talked a lot about the shootouts and its importance. Maybe you need to look other places on where to find specific moves. So what about a 12-year-old, Dave? I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make people mad. You know, I know it's a difficult loss, but maybe, I don't know, watch this kid. 12 years old, watch the move. Here he comes. Skating down the ice. He's running in. Scores!
Wow.
Scores! Oh, baby. And that's it. It's all over. And the other team, they're going home. They're going home. Not bad, eh?
Hot dog.
Yeah.
A little bit of mustard.
You like that?
I like that move.
Yeah.
That's a great move.
In your face. Then there's other teams, of course, in other sports that decide, well, maybe we don't go to a shootout to win. To win is to lose.
Uh-oh.
Yes, the magic of tanking. Mark Cuban has got himself into trouble. $600,000. Yeah. It's in my boot. Here you go.
Yeah.
like he cares. You know.
Darren Rovell did a breakdown financially of the Cuban fine because of his net worth, and I think it's just under $4 billion. And you work out the $600,000, blah blah blah. It would be the comparison of a middle class individual, man or woman, getting a fine of $28. That's actually fact. It's he tweeted it out there. That's the comparison of financial comparisons between us and him.
I've always I like Mark Cuban and probably what he's saying in some ways. Now look, there's two issues, and one has to do with, you know, the previous president and inappropriate behavior and so on. I'm not
sure.
That's not what I'm talking about at this moment. I'm talking about Mark Cuban himself. You know, he's always treated his players like they were all the sheikhs from Abu Dhabi. Like, I mean, when they had their own plane, the way it was outfitted, I mean, you wanted to probably play for Mark Cuban. He's smart enough to understand that. He's one of the guys that also, I think, was the most like his players. Like, very often, there's going to be some old, rich white guy who probably never comes down, never sees practice, and you never see him. Where Mark Cuban was always so emotionally invested in the team that, he did things like when they had, drive through a Dairy Queen thing.
That's right.
He did that. He was so fervent about his dislike of officiating in the league. He said, well, every time you fine me, I'll match the fine, but I'll give it to charity. It's a tough thing, I think, probably as an old boys network, like it is in a lot of these leagues, especially football. I don't think this would never happen in football. Never happen in football.
No.
But he got away with it to a degree, even with David Stern, who was kind of a tough guy to deal with. And I like David Stern for the things that he did, but you've got Mark Cuban sitting down with his players saying, it wouldn't hurt us to lose. We're not going to win, so losing may not be a terrible thing. Now, this is why that fine comes out, but I think that was spurred on by the fact that John Paxson, he's known back in the day, Johnny Jumpshot, where the Chicago Bulls are admitting to their entire fan base, that we're going to play all the rookies, or at least the young guys. So Lopez, who I think has started almost he's the only player they really have not playing. Like, if you're sitting there as a Bulls fan, are you angry or are you happy with the transparency? And the reason that I say that is that a couple of years ago, when the Toronto Maple Leafs played every single young guy and brought them all up from the Marlies to play to get that draft pick, which eventually gets Austin Matthews, amongst others that come afterwards. But really it was about, getting 34 at that point. I don't think one fan at all in the GTA that bled blue. It's not that they didn't care. They supported the move. They supported it. You want to bring up Sparks? Yeah, if he wins it. I mean, remember he got that shutout, in his first game, and he has that really emotional moment where he gets the first star, which, by the way, was one of the more pure moments I've seen in professional sports, simply because guys are so guarded with what they say. They're so guarded with their emotions that you never see that. That was one of my favorite moments, I think, it lasted like 4 or 5 years, was Sparks getting that first star after the shutout and just the outpouring of it. So you had all this, and the best part, losing. But people say, well, it's a tank job. It's a tank job. In this day and age, with salary cap issues, with the way it is financially, and how much it is really a death sentence to be in the middle of any sport. If you're in the Eastern Conference and you're, I don't know, so let's say you're like, who would be in that category? The Rangers.
Okay.
They're what? If you want to call them a bubble team, I guess that's up to you. But look where they are. This is not a year where they're going to be able to drop so low that they're going to get a shot, I wouldn't think, at a particularly big, and also it depends on the draft year. Depends on what you see coming out of the draft. But if you're in the middle ground, Dave, in professional sport right now, especially in the
worst
NHL,
place to be.
It's a death sentence.
Yep.
So you better get those guys up from your Junior C affiliate and get them up there, because otherwise, I think it's hopeless. Like, how many years, if we're taking a look at the standings, how many years in the NHL? Now, that's why that argument gets blown out of the water by Vegas, by the way. The whole premise of what I'm going to say, it makes no sense with what Las Vegas is doing. But if you take a look at what is happening right now, and we'll take the Eastern Conference because of where we're broadcasting from. If you take a look at the Eastern Conference, there are certain teams that are going to fall into that middle ground, and because of that, I'd like to know where you think they're going to end up. So the Sabres and Senators, you're terrible, no problem.
No, that's great for them, yeah.
The Wings and the Canadiens, you're probably also in that conversation. But if you're sitting there as an Islander, I think the Rangers, and maybe to a degree the Florida Panthers, that's debatable. But if you're in that ground right now where you got high 50s to low 60 points, welcome to no man's land.
Bingo.
And you know how many years it's going to take to either go right to the bottom, and then the years it takes to actually go up again? Because it's not like the old days where they saw themselves as a bubble team. They go, next year, come on, fellas, we're going to do better. That's just not the way of the world. So for John Paxson, I don't think you can be angry with him if you're a Bulls fan, because your seasons for the last 2 years have been so bad, so embarrassing, that you might as well go and figure out what is coming out in the draft, what you see in college. Is there a player or two that is a generational player? Because, if you're tanking for a guy that's sort of mediocre in a mediocre draft, it doesn't make sense. But in order to also scoop up draft picks from other teams by trading that off, you better be headed to the basement. I don't have a problem with that.
No,
I don't.
And you know what's interesting about the Chicago Bulls right now, as we're kind of talking about them, they'd pick 8th overall. And eight isn't a bad spot, but you're flirting with no man's land.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting that. You're not getting that guy that's going to, put on the jersey and get on the court. Right now, as it stands, Phoenix is ranked to have the number 1, and of course, this is a lottery too, because you never are quite number 1 in the NBA or in the NHL. So Phoenix, Atlanta, Dallas, Orlando, Sacramento are your bottom 5. Lottery them up, and who's your winner? Well, Phoenix has the best chance at it, but Chicago wants to get in that conversation because out of all sports. And this is tough because you're looking at football as well. And I'd say basketball, out of all the big 4 sports, that first 2 or 3 guys will play the next season, significant minutes, roles, and everything like that. Sometimes in the NHL, yes. Last year, Nico Hischier being the number 1 guy. Impact guy on the Dallas side, I don't think so. NFL, occasionally you'll get that star player that will play. If it's not a quarterback, a lot of times they will sit him on the sidelines. But basketball, Mike, it's almost like you draft that guy number 1, number 2. He's part of your starting 5 the very next season.
I agree with it. So if I'm looking at the possibility of a draft pick playing in that sport for that team as a starter in that next year, I think both you drafting that quarterback. So Deshaun Watson. Of course, he's going to be the number 1 guy.
Sure.
That's how it's going to work.
He didn't start as a starter either, though. Remember?
But it's going to look, they're going to get that ball. When you take a look at Eli Manning, after that weirdness of not going to San Diego and then coming, and it was Kurt Warner at some point. I think it was like game number 3 or 4.
See ya.
Here's the ball. You're playing the days of the baseball cap on backwards, and with the clipboard, watching the senior guy for an entire year rarely happens. Patrick Mahomes. They kind of. That kind of was his existence this year, which is a little surprising. But Alex Smith, I guess, they thought that was their best chance to win. But Patrick Mahomes, your starting quarterback.
He is your starting quarterback next
for
year.
For obvious reason. But he was going to be that starting quarterback for the next season, even when Kansas City was playing well halfway through that season. NBA basketball, of course it is. You take that number 1 guy, there's a reason why you did it. In hockey, even the blue chip guy, I certainly don't have a problem with it, and it's the way that Detroit used to talk. I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but it was the way of not just the player getting ripe in the farm, overripe. They used to say, now that's a luxury that most teams now don't have.
No.
You don't have that.
No, because if you're losing and you have some sort of star in the minors that you just drafted or something like that, gimme. I want to see him. I don't want to see my team as a fan base sitting there dwindling in the bottom of the heap, but there has to be a certain amount of patience as well, because if you look at all the sub-dynasties, we'll call them, not true dynasties because it's a little bit different. Your Chicagos and your Pittsburghs are the best example in the last 15, 20 years of getting number 1 after number 1 after number 1. Pittsburgh's a great example where Fleury's a first overall pick, Sidney Crosby's a first overall pick, and Evgeny Malkin's in the top 3. There's your core of what the Penguins did to win those Stanley Cups. And it's the same thing you could say about Jonathan Toews was a 3rd overall, I believe. Patrick Kane went number 1 overall. There's your foundation of what Chicago did. Duncan Keith was a little bit of a steal because I think he was a little bit later on in the 2nd round. But nonetheless, there's your core right there. That's what has to happen with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Great example. Austin Matthews, number 1. Mitch Marner has turned out to be a very good pick. I think he was around number 5 overall. Correct me if I'm wrong. 4. William Nylander. I remember when William Nylander was drafted, I think it was in the number 7 spot, if I'm correct. 8. See, I'm getting close with these. I don't even like this crappy team. Anyway, the guy that was selected after, his name was Nick Ritchie. He played in the Ontario Hockey League, and he was a big, tough guy that you thought that he was a Ryan Getzlaf type of winger. I thought the Leafs should have picked him instead of William Nylander. And man, was I wrong about that, because William Nylander has turned out to be part of, what am I saying? The core. Morgan Riley, the core. He's a first-round pick. These are how teams develop in this stage of the NHL.
You know what?
It hasn't happened before.
You know what I think also? What do we make of Connor Brown? Because I thought that's been a pretty interesting pick.
Great pick. Great pick. And you know what? Not a first-round pick. Not a guy that you sit there and you go, okay, we have some big expectations. It's funny because he played out in Erie with another Connor, McDavid, and the two of them played really well. But guess what? We could play really well with Connor McDavid, but Connor Brown has shown that, you know what, he developed with the Toronto Marlies for season after season after season, played well down there. Now he's part of that group moving forward, has a nice contract. It's all about development, contract, fit him into that puzzle, make sure that puzzle looks good, and that's why the Toronto Maple Leafs look like they will have a puzzle that will only flourish, and that's why the Toronto Maple Leafs shouldn't give up any future picks, shouldn't give up any prospects to build this year, because I think their maturing isn't this year. It could be within the next year or two.
Actually, Connor Brown came onto our show when we were at TSN. That's where I asked him, I said, is it true that your dad played in the Scottish professional league? And he goes, yeah. He says that he played professional hockey in Scotland. I wonder what that will look like. Have you seen
I'd love to play
the
that
ice
league.
hockey? I mean, I wonder if Eve Muirhead will come in and watch
Maybe.
that.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Yeah.
don't get you started on that. By the way, Connor Brown, 6th round pick in 2012. A 6th rounder flourishes to be part of a core base of a top 3 line, a top 9 forward. Fantastic drafting by the Toronto Maple Leafs with Connor Brown, because you look at that and you sit there for the next 3 years, guy should be hitting close to 18 to 20 goals every single year. Maybe he's the eventual replacement for James Van Riemsdyk when he makes his move out of Toronto, because I don't think they're going to be able to sign him either, just because of dollar amounts and what comes in, what comes out, term, and everybody else that you have to worry about. But it's smart selecting by the Leafs that have built this team into what I think could be a cup contender within the next couple of years.
What frightens me is a lot of what Dave just talked about. If you meet like a young kid, so if like my nephew plays with those young kids, they're like 11, 12 years old. In the day when I was 11 or 12 years old. So I'm going to talk about, hey, Dave Keelan's my favorite player, and I hope he plays forever, and he's really good. Now you go and go, hey, do you like James Van Riemsdyk? Yeah, but I think with the term, what? The length of term, I think his cap hit this year is about. I'm like, shut up, you're 12.
Yeah.
The cap hit. Oh, it grosses me out.
The way the NHL works, right? It's unfortunate, but it's.
There was a time where a number, the number you liked, your favorite number, and the number you had on your jersey was because that guy probably played for your team.
Yes. For
at least like 10. I'm not saying obviously guys got traded, but to say a guy there for like 10 years, 5, 7 years, not a problem.
I still think a little bit like that, because anytime like it hasn't happened with this version of the Jets, but anytime I'd see, like, for example. Yesterday with the Avco Cup, number 10 was, and I think Howard Chuck right away. Well, the original number 10 on the Jets was Peter Sullivan. And you sit there and you go 10, that. Just like Andrew.
But 10 in Winnipeg is Dale's number.
Yes, and just like 9 in Winnipeg is Bobby Hall.
Right.
And Andrew Kopp wears number 9, and it kind of bugs me. And I think that's one of the things I used to be irked about when Evander Kane wore number 9 in Winnipeg. And it's funny because he did actually ask permission from Bobby Hall, and Bobby Hall's answer, and it's a great answer.
Go fuck yourself.
I wish you would have said that. No, Bobby Hall's number is, you can take the number and best of luck with it, but it's a heavy number. It's a heavy number. And it's like I refer to that all the time when I'm talking to my brother and Winnipeg Jet fans, and that it is the number 9 is a heavy number in Winnipeg. Just like if somebody were to come over here and decide to ask for 14 or 27 or one of those historic numbers, I don't like people wearing it. I know the Leafs have kind of changed their way of thinking, but I hated it when people sat here and they wore 17 and they wore 22, Rick 5. I don't like that at all. And I think I remember us talking to Jeremy Roenick, and I said there, Johnny Oduya was given the number 27 in Chicago, and that pissed me off. And I have nothing to do with Jeremy Roenick or Johnny Oduya, but you don't wear that number.
Yeah,
ever.
there's certain numbers that are sacred. And in Toronto, because the way Harold Ballard was, he wanted to make sure that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Thus, those years where, and I honestly, I forgot about it when we showed the clip that time. The no names on the back.
Yes.
No names in the back from Harold. So that's so Ballard. Let's also take a look at some more exciting as we suffer the loss last night, the Team Canada with the shootout. Maybe they just need to be a little more lucky. And I don't know if I've really quite seen. This is from like the Rockport Ice Dogs, I want to say. Is that what they're calling themselves? From the Rockport Ice Dogs.
Ice Hogs.
Ice Hogs.
Ice Hogs. Yeah.
I'm not really familiar with that, but if you need some luck, watch the puck, because that's the key to this thing. After the guy shoots it, this is probably what Canada may have needed last night. It's coming in. Is it stopped? It goes straight up. The goalie thinks he made the save. It comes down from the heavens and goes in the net. How does that even happen? Oh, if that's me, I would have just, my temper would have been so brutal. I don't know what I would have done. I would have been psycho. I probably would take my own skate and start sawing on my arm.
That's interesting.
Well, you don't see that often.
I've never seen that.
Oh, Harry.
Would have been the first, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've just never seen that. Now, do you need ideas from other places? Okay, here's what I find particularly disturbing. And you know what? Maybe I'll use this music again because, or do I not have it here? Oh, here it is. If you say it sometimes around the world, this always freaks me out. If you say the word hockey, there are some, and in fact, maybe the majority, Dave, around a lot of the world will say, "You mean ice hockey?"
hate that.
Well,
that.
I go, well, what other hockey you talking about? They will call field hockey. You know, I'll be honest. And apparently men play it. Apparently guys play this. I only thought it was a woman's sport. I didn't realize guys played it. I don't hear about guys playing field hockey ever. You're out of the club.
Yeah.
People, you can't be that way these days. Yes, you can, and it's completely appropriate. What a stupid thing for guys to play. Come on. Hockey.
Garbage.
Didn't you say you sat in a bus with like Australian guys and said, "Oh yeah, we're the hockey team"? Was it Australia?
Was it Australia?
There was you said you were on a bus and, and they said, "Oh, no, we're in the hockey team." You're not in the hockey. Number one, it's the Summer Olympics. Summer Olympics, no hockey.
No, that's and it's funny because I've had the conversation in meetings with broadcasters at the IOC and discussing what events you can cover and stuff like that. So my thing was, I work for the NHL Network. I could cover hockey. I could do this. And I keep on saying hockey. And one of them sits there and goes, hockey. So ice hockey? I'm like, well, what the hell else would I be talking about? Yeah. What else would I be talking about? We're at the Winter Olympics. It's hockey. It's Summer Olympics. You call it whatever you want to call it. It's
field hockey.
No, thanks. No, thanks.
And I'm not bragging to anyone.
No.
If I became the greatest field hockey player in the world,
tell no one
tomorrow. Yeah, you did. What did you do yesterday, Mike? I watched Peaky Blinders on Netflix.
Yep.
You sure? Because it looks like you got a suitcase there. It says you were in Holland. No, it's not true. You know what I mean? I wouldn't tell anybody.
Yeah, it's kind of like riding a scooter. You ride it in your private time, but you don't tell your friends about it.
Yep, there's a joke there too. There is. Yes, there is. We use moped. Oh, they're fun to ride. Just don't tell your friends. To be continued.
Yes. Yeah, fill in the blanks, friends.
Okay, so do I have any more? Do I have another penalty shot? What one is this one? Oh, this is the kid in Sweden, right? So this is 2006.
R. Graham.
This
Sweden?
is Linus. Linus, what is it?
Olmark.
Yeah. So I guess, was it a cup of coffee with
it was,
Edmonton?
Yeah, he came up with the Oilers a couple years ago, made his name with a couple shootout winners, and people thought, hey, they got something there. No, they don't. No, they don't.
That's like winning a slam dunk competition and go, this guy's going to be the best guy in the NBA. What? No. It's a why to end it with a, like last night with a shootout, a specific skill set to decide. A team sport just shouldn't work, but this goes back to 2006. This is Linus Olmark, and I have to admit, in terms of this skill, he was pretty good at it.
För Edmonton Oilers år 2007.
Edmonton Oilers.
Ger Sverige ledningen i straffläggningen.
Hinderspinde.
Oj. Han tar en riktig Siljansväng.
Oh, you son of a bitch. There comes Richards. He's cutting his own arm. Oh, I would not.
To do this move at this time of game.
Woo-wee.
Alltså, jag minns en straffspark i VM i fotboll som en tjeck gjorde för massor
No,
av år sedan. Han lobbade in den. Men det här vet
It's outstanding.
That is
it's really ballsy, though. I saw Pavel Datsyuk do that once, and it's like, wow. I mean, that's video game right there.
Yeah.
That's
I've
what
seen
that
soccer
is.
shootouts where they go in hard and just
Touch.
because the guy
Yes.
dives to each side and they touch it and it goes right
It's
down,
like,
dribbles
oh.
down the middle. Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
I couldn't take it.
No,
I just have too much of
Yeah.
anger issues, I think. Is what
I think it's fair. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I know you're okay with it. So we take a look as we get, so we just passed the All-Star break in NBA. You've got, this is kind of, I think, with the NHL, when you get to, the end of February, March, you're going to run out of track pretty soon, Dave. It might seem to, I guess, when you take a look at the number of the games, like, oh, no, we got like 20 games left. Do you know how fast 20 games goes at this time of year?
Boom. Yes, exactly.
So for those thinking that the Vegas Golden Knights, well, they simply, with 84 points, they're not falling out of it. Like literally, and here's what I also think too, when you take a look at goal differential, that's why, and when I talk about the argument of tanking and why you bring in certain players, they're breaking all the rules. Their goal differential is plus 46. It is tops. Is that in the league? It's certainly tops in the West. I'll take a look at the East. Who's anyone got plus 46?
I think so.
Okay, Tampa Bay's got plus 54.
Okay.
Bruins are 49. So they're the top 3 differential in the league.
Yeah, amazing.
In the West, that tends to always be more explosive than the East. And they're still getting it done. How many rounds truly can they go?
I still think they're going to be upset in the first round by a wild card team. I still think they are. Yep, I know.
Is that just,
just
Dave
saying.
Bastel glass half empty, or
That's
is
big
it
time
just
half empty.
What's the bet? Because you must have some kind of bet. It's always
I-
and I don't have a problem being motivated by trying to win money.
I don't. Here's my problem, and no, because I do have a Stanley Cup odd on it, right, at 200 to 1 to win, but I only bet $1. So
See,
it's not a
but
big deal to
200.
me.
You look at an expansion team that in the West,
Yes.
and that's why I said to Phil Gray,
I just treat it
200.
as-
It should be 1,000 to 1.
Exactly. I look at this and go, there are 4 to 5 teams in the Central Division that should be able to beat up on the Vegas Golden Knights. If it's a 7-game series, I know everybody sits there and goes, Vegas is so good at home. Well, guess what? The playoffs are different than a regular season game in February or November or January, whenever the hell your team goes down to Vegas. I just look at this and go, and in the standing right now, it's St. Louis and Minnesota in that 2 wild card spots. You mean to tell me you don't think the St. Louis Blues could go into Vegas and win? Damn right
see,
they can.
And see, that's the West. That team that maybe should perform better than they do. If
Sorry.
they sneak in as 8,
Yeah.
and or wherever they fall, well, that matchup is.
Technically, it would be Minnesota right now.
Yeah.
And okay, I'll ask you this. You don't think Devin Dubnyk could win a series by himself? Devin Dubnyk on his game. And we've seen Devin Dubnyk crap the bed this year, and we've seen Devin Dubnyk win 2 straight weeks of nobody scoring on Devin Dubnyk.
He's been both sides of that. And I just think that probably for Doobie, even if he stands on his head, boy, he's got to get some support from somewhere.
Sure he does.
And
Sure he does.
that's the only thing. But if you think that I believe once it gets in the playoffs and you got to go to a place like St. Louis where it starts to look more like a WWE crowd, like they might play a little earlier in the day, or you play a little, like it is a whole bunch of nasty, and they don't mind, even though it's not Hitch, because he had a certain way of coaching that team. But we saw what happened in the playoffs. But I'm just saying, it tends to be it's not a track meet game. You're going to St. Louis for a first round of the playoffs. I'm talking 2-1s.
Yeah.
2-1s, 3-2s, bunch of overtimes. You know what I mean? I can completely see that happening.
So I not to burst the balloon of the Vegas Golden Knights. I I want to see the matchup before I actually talk about it. But if it's one of those Central Division teams I'm talking about, which right now it stands in that position, I know the Kings are banging on the door, the Flames are banging on the door.
And the Flames got filled in last night.
Yeah, they did, exactly. And you know what? The stretch drive doesn't look like it's going to be too kind to them, which sucks because I kind of want to see them there. And I don't know if I'm going to see them there. Even though the Avalanche are still in contention, I just don't see them making a run. And everybody below, your Chicagos, your Vancouvers, Edmonton, and of course Arizona, the season's over already. Good night.
So tomorrow we're going to do, once again, you know how we showed you how on Sports Interaction, how one is going to make a bet. At that point, we started talking about, I think it was NFL football that we did.
Yes.
We're going to start taking a look at how you want to bet on the NHL. Because once again, the rules and the offer still applies from Sports Interaction, where up to $200 they will match your bet. So if you think that you at least bet maybe $50 or $100, well, if you bet $200, they'll throw the other $200 in. But maybe there's a way of looking at it that you haven't looked at it before, where you're going to start taking a look at maybe I will with the NHL playoffs coming up.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what's big for a lot of guys is the totals, because playoff hockey in the first round isn't as tight as it gets, and you really have to take a look at that matchup and go, okay, does the odds maker drop them down a little bit, or do you start seeing 5.5s, and do you say to yourself, okay, well, are the overs attractive depending on what that matchup is? Mm-hmm. Keeping in mind that you always believe that NHL playoffs are going to be a little tighter. But Dave, the first round is always goofy.
Sure it is.
The first round's goofy because everyone thinks they have a chance. I mean, it is actually a pretty great time of year. And so we'll take a look at that tomorrow. We'll do like a little bit of the how-to bet.
I like it.
And I think we'll do that. Now, have I left anything on the table here? Russell, what have I left down? What do we got to play before this show?
We have the terrible cover.
This is a great way to go out.
Okay.
As you know, we've been famous for years in finding some of the world's worst bands. And the worst cover of A Final Countdown was a huge hit for us. Now, the way it works now on the internet and YouTube, some goofball says that they own the rights to it, and then they goon you if you play it. I'm pretty sure this one is copyright free. It better be. Because if anyone really wants to own the rights to this, that's just sad. Because I believe that I have found the worst band, if I can call them that, doing the worst cover of The Final Countdown by one of some figure the worst band, Europe. I think that's a huge put down. But maybe, just maybe, if Europe were to open up their hearts and listen, that they would realize that they never, ever should have written this song. At least they look good. Holy. Now they have some troubles here. They struggle. The guitar player yesterday got smacked in the head for doing this. Here come the vocals. People clapping. Thank you. Actually, the song hasn't started yet.
We live on together.
Yes.
Yeah.
But still it's farewell. Maybe we'll come back to earth, who can tell? I guess there is no one to blame.
Russell, would you? Yeah, I don't know. Leaving, yeah.
I think that's affirmative from Russell.
It's the final countdown.
Oh, yeah. I think they should play this when the Leafs come out on the ice.
The final countdown.
I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. All righty. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. What is right?
We just become best friends? Yup.
It was like in a Greek church or something.
You want to go do karate in the
Maybe.
garage? Yup.
And now, we say nothing.
Yes, we do. You know what we will say on this Thursday, though? Have yourselves a happy Margarita Day, because today is Margarita Day.
I'm sorry. I thought that was every day. Margarita Day.
Yes.
I'll have to check that out. make sure tomorrow you catch up with us. You can start to peek a little bit at the NHL playoffs, and we've got some gambling tips for you.
Let's get ready to rumble!
And maybe more terrible bands and fights that should never happen. That's what you get on this show. It's the intrigue. What's he going to do next? Oh, probably play a bad band and two old women fighting in a Sobeys. You're welcome. Subscribe, by the way. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe right in the corner because you don't want to miss a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Final count.